build the narrative here. You answer the question.
Get out.
You're not going to build the
What is
narrative.
this, North Korea? I can't speak. You asked me to call in. You said I was a coward. I couldn't call in, or I was afraid, or whatever. I called in, and this is how you treat your guests. Maybe this is a Christian thing. I don't understand, but Muslims don't treat their guests like this.
You throw out a
congratulations.
You throw out something you think is a gotcha topic, and then you
Easy.
talk people,
Right.
and then jump to a different topic when you're shown that you're wrong.
Muslim.
And you know what? On top of that,
This is a Muslim
you
he
wanted to
just
name
lost?
people like Bart Ehrman. So there are scholars
They're
who affirm
saying
traditional
you
right.
look like a fucking AI.
Okay.
You know,
Where
it's
was the
like an
Bible
AI
compiled?
Muslim.
What's the
What do they
earliest
call it?
complete
You know, like
manuscript
the
of the Bible?
to have like the OCs.
You said it before, do you know it?
Yeah. So here's the thing.
YouTuber?
When I asked you to answer the question,
Okay, Codex Sinaiticus.
I knew that looked like
Yes,
a fucking
I know, I read
GTA
it.
deep fake.
Okay, very good. Now,
I think
it was
GTA looks
printed
better
out
than
and
that.
given to everybody, correct?
there was no printing back then.
Cornered.
But you don't look. You know what? Okay, here.
Cornered like his daddy.
If you're going to call the
Yes,
show,
he kicked him.
at least know that there was no.
Let me just do this. Let me cook.
Did this guy? Okay, you know what? I need a minute.
Hold on.
Well, while he's
Got to go.
taking care of that, how you doing there, Kyla?
I need a minute.
I also wanted to finish out on one of his last.
He needs a minute to get his
things he made.
epistemics
He said
together.
that Christianity's dying.
To try to put myself into your gotcha moment. Not gonna do it. You're not gonna get that from me. All right. Now, having said that, Dr. Alpha, you've been warned about how I run my show. You're not gonna come in here. You're not gonna be disingenuous. If you are going to make a claim, make the claim. I already know. I'm pretty sure I know what you're gonna say. I knew you were gonna call. So go ahead, Dr. Alpha. Say what you're gonna say.
All right, thank you. So it seems to me you're a little bit confused about the last argument. So what did you have an objection to any of the premises or not?
Okay, number one, don't come in telling me I'm confused. You have no idea what I'm confused about. If you have a statement to make, make a statement.
Okay, so do you agree with the following? If a being is non-physical, it cannot be subject to physical things. Yes or no?
What? Okay. Brett, am I being? I swear to, am I being unclear? And maybe I'm Brett. I don't get it. Can you repeat to him what I just said about people coming in with their ridiculous questions? He knows what my opinion is on it.
This is a pretty really. This is just a
Yeah,
really
isn't
simple
this the
question.
guy that we
This is the same
defeated
guy. This is
last
the same
week?
guy that we crushed last week. The same one.
We already pointed this
Crush
out.
me, but
that
you don't want to actually defend any claims, right?
Defend any claim.
we
You
already
ran out of
we
the-
already answered this question.
You
like
ran out of the debate. You ran out of.
Dog, you literally muted me and then kicked me.
So we can go back. Because my
I
hands were
literally have
actually
the
in front of
footage
me.
on my YouTube channel.
You can
I
put it up
literally
if
have
you
the
want.
footage on my YouTube channel. You can lie all you want. but it's not even
Congratulations.
good.
Okay, so you know what? Here, let's go back.
All right, first of all, Dr. Alpha, this is this man's show. Maverick can do whatever he wants. He can control, moderate, and do whatever he likes. You
Yeah, I
came
understand that.
in,
I'm
you
just
were
wondering
answered the
if you want to
question
have a
3
conversation
times,
or
and
not.
you're doing exactly what you did last time, where you cut people off when they're talking. You say you want answers, but then when someone answers, you cut them off repeatedly. You're not looking for a conversation. You have an agenda.
And you continue to make a false claim anyway, where you continue to try to make this assertion that because you believe that an immaterial God cannot interact with a physical world without it being a contradiction, you believe that it's true. Here's the problem with that. It doesn't matter what you believe is true.
Right, it just matters what the facts do. Facts don't care about your feelings. So
Right.
anyways, are you going to answer the question?
What is your question?
The problem
If a
is
being
this
non-physical, it
man.
cannot be subject to physical changes.
You
cannot
keep
just
on
simply
putting
modify modalities
limitations
and just
on
result in
God.
contradiction.
That's the
We're not
problem that
cutting me off,
Maverick
buddy.
keeps
We're not
trying to
cutting
tell
me
you.
off. We're not-
Hello,
we're cutting
that's
each other
not.
off.
You are the one that is putting limitations on God.
Right.
Is where Maverick and I
Yeah,
believe
right.
that God is a powerful entity that is not limited to the physical
Right.
or immaterial.
Yes.
Right.
And we
So
explained
what
that to you
I'm
last
saying
time.
is- wait. What I'm saying is, it's just going to result in a contradiction. Whether or not God can undergo contradictions is just. a
It will be
theological
only a
question. This establishes
contradiction
it's
in
gonna be a
your mind
contradiction.
alone, though.
Right,
Your
right.
own
Yeah,
delusion.
and that's the thing. And Brett asked you this last week. He said, and I asked you to explain how and what evidence do you have that God interacting with the physical world is a contradiction?
Once again, this isn't interaction, it's just subjection to physical things. Like if he subjects himself to physical law, it's just going to be a contradiction because he resides without it.
Who
That's why I
says-
asked you the question
and who
initially.
says
If
that
a being is
God-
not physical, it cannot be subject to physical things.
Who
Like I want the
said-
answer to that question.
Who the hell says that God is subjected to physical laws even if he's interacting with the physical universe?
Yeah, that's going to go into like premise 3 or premise 4. But I'm asking you if we establish that premise 1 is true or not, which is if a being is non-physical, it cannot be subject to physical things. Yes or no?
Again, God has no limitations.
Yes, but it's just going to result in a contradiction. Whether or not he's going to be limited by a contradiction is just going to be a theological question. I already explained this.
Pro Alpha,
It's
let
gonna
me
result in a
explain to you why
contradiction.
this
That's what I mean by
sounds.
cannot in this
Can I
sentence.
explain to you why this sounds absolutely ridiculous?
Yeah.
You do realize that Christians believe that God not only interacted with the physical world, but he created it.
Right.
So to say that he is limited and cannot touch it or interact with it, it's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs,
Yeah.
my friend.
Yeah, I'm not saying he can't interact with it for the third time, buddy. So I said he can't subject himself to it. Maybe you should listen, right?
He subjected himself to it when he was incarnate as Jesus Christ. So maybe you should learn before you open your mouth.
Yeah, because it became physical.
Okay.
That wouldn't be a contradiction because it became physical when he went into the form of Jesus Christ.
Okay.
See, the guy doesn't make sense there.
He doesn't.
just doesn't.
So here, you know what? Let me ask Kyla. Kyla, you from the outside listening in, right? Does anything that this kid say make sense to you? Honestly, does anything that he's saying? He continues to try to reword things as if he's more intelligent than everyone in the room. There's an entire video showing him getting kicked around for 17 straight minutes and then left and accused me of kicking him out, even though there's proof on the internet that I did not kick him out.
But you spoke endlessly with this. How did you actually engage
So
with
at the end of the day, Kyla, if you were listening to this, right, and you were coming in, would anything that he is saying make sense to you? The guy is literally implementing limitations on God and saying, but because it's a contradiction. It's a contradiction. He can't do it. And he continues to dodge the question, what is your evidence for the fact that it's a contradiction, when from the beginning in the book of Genesis, it makes it clear that God can interact with the universe in any way that he wants to?
I'm going to explain it in a way that maybe he will understand. That
I
maybe
doubt it,
it
but go
will
ahead.
end all of this.
Yeah.
Please be quiet, child. I am talking.
Please don't mute him. I think muting someone you're debating against is really stupid.
Well, it doesn't really matter what you think. This
Right.
is his, and so he can mute
I'm sorry you
everybody.
think wrong things, though. I'm
Okay.
very sorry.
All right. So go ahead, Kyla. They're both muted because they're both children who can't hold their water. So go ahead.
God plays a global game of chess all at one time. And we as people only know how to play flat checkers.
Right.
And at the same time, we're over here trying to understand and figure out God's game of 3D checkers.
All right, Dr. Alpha.
Or not
Okay, I
checkers,
got you, I got
3D,
you.
3D
So, yeah,
chess.
with the whole thing about the checkers and the chess thing is, the thing is, it's not going to be a contradiction, because a contradiction is just going to be something that exists outside of the mind, because logic is going to be independent of the mind in the first place. So lots of logic, like P or not P, being the law of non-contradiction, is going to exist independently. So we will be able to tell if something's going to be a contradiction or not, which God's properties are going to be a contradiction. And that's the whole point of the argument. It's not the point to say that God's limited by contradiction or something like that.
Remember, though, chess and checkers are played on the same board with the
Right,
same
just
amount of
address it.
pieces.
Can you
The
reiterate
difference
what it
is, no, I can't, because remember, rude people
Yeah.
do rude things and interrupt, which you had interrupted. So, no,
Okay, my bad.
they are played on the same board with the same amount of pieces, but the difference is what pieces you're playing with versus what pieces he's playing with.
So here,
Okay, I got you.
I have a
Oh, yeah.
statement. I have a statement to make against Dr. Alpha, because he's doing the same thing he tried to do last time. He wants to come in and he wants to try to speak really fast. His ideas are extremely incoherent, because his idea is that his argument, first of all, guys, is that it's 100% self-defeating. All right, it's self-defeating and it's philosophically illiterate. And I feel like I'm repeating myself with this guy. But what he's trying to say is that God's properties are a contradiction, and that contradiction exists independently of your mind, because logic exists apart from minds, right? So basically what he's trying to say is, I believe in material transcendent laws of logic that exist independently of all minds, except when it comes to God, then suddenly they're not compatible. So I'm going to break this down, because this is the kind of conversation that Dr. Alpha he's not able to have, right? First of all, he borrowed from theism to argue against God. Okay, if you admit that logic exists objectively, which apparently he's doing, you just stepped into the theistic worldview, whether you wanted to or not. Okay, because in atheistic materialism, where does logic live? It's not made of particles. It's not something that's tangible, and it's not testable in the lab. It is not material. So again, you're using an immaterial universal standard to judge a being who transcends materiality, right? So you're literally borrowing capital from the Christian worldview, as Brett has alluded to, as Kyla has alluded to. But that brings me to my second most important point, is that logic doesn't exist outside of God. It exists because of God. And in classical theism, logic is not a cage that God is trapped in, right? I know that in your mind, Dr. Alpha, you think that because you say something, that's what makes it true. You said in my comment section so many times that you are a physicalist. Well, congratulations. I don't care what you are. At the end of the day, you making baseless assertions without proof, by the way, without evidence, without any examples to give to us, to say that God subjecting himself to physical laws is a contradiction is the most asinine thing, because we're going on 2 weeks now, and yet not in one debate that you ran out of like a coward, and then you're doing it again today, and you still have no way whatsoever to illustrate what you're saying. You just continue to say it. So now I'm going to ask you one last time. Do you have any evidence that God subjecting himself to anything in the physical universe is a contradiction? Now, we know that that's what your assertion is. What is your proof?
Yeah. All right, I got you. So the first thing is, I never said that God can't undergo contradictions that somebody put in my mouth. I said that's a theological question. Secondly, you said I borrow from the Christian worldview in order to get logic and stuff like that. I think logic, I'm agnostic on whether logic or not is going to be a material thing or not. But at the end of the day, there's no argument for why it's going to be the case that logic is something of the Christian worldview. And about the contradiction, if it is the case, if a being is non-physical, it cannot be subject to physical changes. God is a being is non-physical. God created the universe. You agreed to this. Both of you guys agreed to the last two premises. You never answered the first premise. And so it would just lead to a contradiction to create the universe and be non-physical for the reason stated.
Well, I didn't agree with anything that you put forth. I said,
wait, do you think God didn't create the universe?
God has the ability to manifest himself physically, and he's also able to extension into the universe. So I don't know what you're talking about, saying we all agreed with you on that. No, I did not.
And I definitely
Yeah,
didn't.
you agreed that God created the universe. That's what I said.
That's literally what you just said.
Yeah, so you do agree to that, God TV. So the second thing you did agree to originally was God is a being that's non-physical, meaning he just resides out of space and time, which you have agreed to this in the past, God TV and Brother Maverick.
We have agreed
that God has interacted within
Right.
our universe as well. The Bible clearly shows that God interacts with mankind.
Yeah. And
right, but being non-physical means he resides outside of space and time. You would agree that God in his original form resides outside of space and time, right?
God has
Of
existed
course.
since before space, matter, and time had existed. He created the space, matter, and time, and the domain in which we live in, which means he is not subjected to it any more than Steve Jobs would have been subjected to be living inside of an iPhone that he created.
Right, kindergarten analogy, but then
That's good, Maverick.
All right, you know what? Have a good one, Dr.
Not,
Alpha. I cannot. I'm sorry, guys. I cannot talk to children who don't know how to debate, and it thinks that he's just gonna keep reading from the same script and that he's doing something. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't know who this is. Rich.
Kicked twice.
Okay. Be living inside of an iPhone that he created.
right, kindergarten analogy, but then also what's also
Good,
the thing is
Maverick.
a being is
All right.
non-physical in its original form. He literally kicked me. He kicked me. This is proof that I was kicked the first time as well. I wasn't running away from anything. He kicked me from the conversation because he was getting absolutely annihilated and obliterated rhetorically and on substance as well. He had no concept of what the contradiction was.